Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Telemedia News in 10. It's our Easter special and it's episode 17. It's me, Jarvis, Todd, the Telem-easter bunny, and him over there, Paul Skeldon. He's the Telemedia News. He's all covered in chocolate. How are you, Paul?
Well, I didn't have any bunny ears, but a bit of research, and I found that for the Vikings this time of year was the celebration of Freya, the goddess of love and war. So I'm hot and horny.
Lovely. He's got me with a prop before we even start. Well, as always, we are going to whistle through some of the top stories from the wonderful world of telemedia. Me and Thor over there. We're going to start off by talking about apps and games. It seems like we can't leave that topic alone. There's been some great stuff come out from App Annie, and we're going to just talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk about brand engagement. Although it sounds boring, PSD2 is back in the news with a couple of interesting stories. We're going to finish up with a little preview of what we've got planned after Easter for Telemedia 8.1. So without further ado, asterisks, apps and games. The first story came out last week. Mobile games dominates app spend. I know that this is probably not in itself new news, but App Annie, as always, have put together some really interesting figures for everybody that's considering pushing games into the market as being one of their preferred value-added services. A couple of headline figures for you. Of the 143 billion consumers that's consumers spent on apps in 2020, 100 billion, that's 70%, was on games. Paul, not that surprising. You've been talking about it a lot. What was the things?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's two things that are really interesting. One, that there's 143 billion dollars being spent on apps is that's a lot of money. I mean, there's 7 billion people in the world. That's sort of, I can't do the maths because the helmet is too tight and constraining my brain. But that's tens of dollars per person. That's a lot. The fact that 70% of it is games, I guess, isn't that surprising. What I think is interesting is that the majority of those games are casual gamers. It's not really your hardcore sort of gambling gamers. It's not your sort of the sort of spotty people you might have associated with kind of online gaming and all that. It's just normal people picking up their phone and downloading a game and playing it and spending money on stuff in the app for the game. I think that, that's the standout thing for me, that it's just a totally ubiquitous casual entertainment thing for what must be the majority of people who've got a smartphone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what's interesting to note about this is that actually games only account for 36% of all mobile app downloads, which suggests that all the other categories have got some catching up to do in terms of how they monetize their apps in the consumer marketplace. Because obviously if the games guys can do it, it looks like another 64% of the market are not doing it quite so well.
I mean, games are pretty compelling though. I don't know. I mean, I don't really play that many, but I do play a couple of ones just to sort of decompress after a hard telemedia day. Very quickly you get fed up with the free version with having to wait to do the next thing because of the adverts. I think games particularly lend themselves to that immediacy and that sort of quick fix that people will pay for the premium model rather than the freemium one just to get rid of the adverts because they enjoy the games. I think that's part of why they're so successful at being monetized. However, I think they make the monetization quite slick. It's really easy to sort of upgrade yourself to the paid version. And I think maybe that's where other app categories can learn from how they do that sort of beautiful, seamless upsell, essentially, from onboarding people through a freemium version to making them pay.
But of course, advertising is a big part of that as well, because I noticed that 296 billion hours are spent playing mobile games, which is up 35% from 2019, which I think is another reason why this whole the games environment is becoming a sort of tangible media channel, right? Because we talked about in-game advertising quite a long time ago, didn't we?
We did, yeah. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, it is what sort of funds it all, and it is where advertising is going. That's where the eyeballs are. And I think in-app advertising, not just around games, is sort of where marketers are looking to spend their money. I think what is likely to sort of happen in the coming years is this will evolve so that the adverts generate some value for the user. So it's not just endlessly interrupting your flow of playing the game with, throwing other games at you usually. But it does sort of, give you something that might be useful. And I think if you can make the mobile advertising in-app thing something that works for people and something they get something out of, then you can start to monetize even the paid for apps using this sort of thing. So I think there needs to be some creativity in how these it's ready for the app advertising to move on, I think, to the next stage of actually being something engaging and content driven in its own right.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the footnote to that was Lexi Seidel, the senior market insight manager at App Annie, when she was talking about monetization, did say advertising remained a strong avenue for monetization in mobile games in 2020, despite a softening of demand in the advertising industry overall. In fact, mobile ads helped bolster the ad industry overall in 2020, and gaming was a major contributor to that. Yeah. So I suspect that we'll be talking about in-app and in-game advertising
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think where advertising crosses over with engagement is the interesting place.
Yeah. Well, and talking about App Annie, a nice segue. They have been, a fantastic source of data over the last couple of years. And I think anybody that's involved in the mobile content arena will be aware of their work. But just in case you're not, the most recent report, which was sent out by them, 21 expert tips to launch an app in 2021, is a brilliant read. Apart from the fact that I won't go through the whole things, there are 21 things you should know if you're going to launch your Telemedia News app pool. But I'm just going to share my screen because I think this could be the future of reports. I would just urge everyone to go to our website, get the link, telemediaonline.co.uk. We'll make sure that the link to this white paper is up on screen, is on the screen, and you can link to it. But this is the kind of stuff that you can now expect from these guys. So the bar's been set pretty high. I'm just going to share my screen, and we're just going to marvel at some of the great things that you can find out from this report. Right, so first thing I love, Paul, 21 expert tips to launch an app in 2021. The first thing I thought was brilliant. On screen, scroll down, stuff starts moving. So, you can do this. You can look at the apps by their category, and you can see, you can see them grow like this. Look,
cool.
Look at that. You can actually get the data you want within the report, which I thought was brilliant. And no surprise, if you go to games, and this side is by App Store, and the other one over here is by Google Play.
Yeah.
Compare the two, and you can find. And I just thought, if I was working in the games sector right now, I mean, this kind of stuff so useful. It's a bit of a shame about the scale there, but I was playing around with this for hours.
It's good, isn't it? Well, I'm hoping App Annie, if you're listening, you can build reports like this for us.
I also particularly liked profile your competitors, and you've got a little video graphic at the side there. I mean, come on, this is fantastic stuff.
That is really good, actually. That is really nice.
Really clever. It really brings out the points. Just like this one. Then we got identify the most strategic keywords.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
there's a lot of detail in the report.
Look at this one.
How to do stuff. It really is handy.
Yeah, look at this one. And you can leverage intelligent machine learning to unearth keyword opportunities. And it actually shows you how to do it. And define your success metrics. And finally, this is the one I love the best. Look, Graph Central.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this. Oh. You can't beat an animated graph.
Oh, look at that.
Isn't that great?
Look at that. That's marvellous.
So that, my friends, is how you do a report in in spring of 2021. I would, as I say, urge you to go and have a play around with it. Apart from the fact that it's got tons and tons of information in it, but it's delivered in a very succinct way, and the animations at the side, and the way that you can actually drill deeper to get the data you want, I think is brilliant. So moving swiftly on, and with Paul with his report writing tail firmly between his legs now. Don't worry, mate. Listen, let's get back to some more solid ground. Brand engagement. The next story was UK consumers are engaging with brands again as website traffic, email, and chat interactions are higher now than ever before.
Yeah, well, we saw a big sort of uptick in all this when the lockdown happened and people were predominantly online and they were sort of interacting much more with all sorts of brands. And then it tailed off a bit, particularly around Christmas. I think we sort of had, yet another lockdown and things were looking pretty grim with the virus and stuff. I think sort of it did dampen people's enthusiasm, but we're back. And people are in there sort of talking away to brands, and they're doing it. The story sort of leads off with being about email, but actually what's really interesting is the sort of chat bots and chat are becoming sort of much more used ways of doing it. And what I found particularly interesting is the fact that the number of deals created and closed using chat has been steadily growing. Which is an interesting metric, I think. Sort of we're seeing now a move from people chatting through these other channels to actually sort of wanting to buy stuff through them, which I think plays back to things we've spoken about many times on our podcasts about things like RCS and more engaging and interactive messaging and buying out of the message. I think this is the whole idea of sort of wanting to chat and resolve and buy things is really sort of coming to fruition now in 2021. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and it's an interesting take. It's interesting as well that email is still very popular. Who'd have thought it, that we're still emailing brands and wanting them to email us back?
Well, it's bounced back, hasn't it, as a result of people spending more time online?
Yeah, totally.
And also feeling as though they're more likely to respond to sales pitches and marketing.
I think so. I think so. And we trust it. It's old-fashioned, isn't it? Email. It's the good old way of doing it now.
We love it. And we know our customers love it. So, I mean, the takeaway is more time online means more chat, which I think means, broadly speaking, more conversational commerce, really, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I think, this is one snapshot of a particular sort of way of doing it. I think, yes, it speaks for that broader sort of industry trend we're seeing for conversational commerce. It just reinforces how important that is going to be, and is being already.
But I mean, also the other aspect of business which comes from that is that you've got more customers online, then there's going to be a need for more customer support. We talked about customer engagement and customer support and customer user experience, acronym alert, UX. And we know that around those particular areas, that's also lots of business for the telemedia industry in terms of messaging.
Absolutely.
AI and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, I agree with you. Whilst it started out, I was kind of slightly surprised that you'd thrown an email story in there. I think the point was it's about how consumers are now behaving. And
no, totally. And not to forget that the old ways of doing it with things like email are not to be overlooked. They are still really important. And making, sort of conversational email and sort of, I guess, sort of email through which you can directly lead to a sale. It's still an important and difficult to do sort of thing, and difficult to do well, I think. So, very important. More of that, I think, over the coming year, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and it's especially difficult to sell if you're not playing by the rules, which brings us very neatly onto the fact that it sounds as though a large number of UK retailers wrongly think that PSD2 does not affect them. Now, this is a report by Ravlin, who are a fraud detection and payment acceptance specialist. And if anyone out there doesn't know, PSD2 regulation aims to make electronic payments more secure in Europe. And I think that's the key, that the UK retailers feel that this is a European directive and perhaps is not relevant to them. But oh boy, how wrong they are.
Well, absolutely. And I think this probably applies to all the European regulations. Of course, the UK is still subject to them. They're being written into UK law rather than just being European law. And even though we've Brexited, it still is relevant. And yes, they're overlooking PSD2. And I think what is significant is that while at the moment kind of exports and sales into Europe from the UK have, well, plummeted is possibly putting it strongly, but I think that's a good word. It's as stuck as that enormous container ship was currently in the doldrums. But there is still traffic and trade going between the UK and Europe, and there is a sort of direct to consumer e-commerce trade, and if they're not meeting PSD2 rules, they're going to get clobbered. So it's something that retailers and merchants and brands all need to be aware of. This does still apply, and you've got to work within it.
Now, there's I do have to raise some concerns over this particular story, because if we drill down a little bit further, it says that 42% of UK retailers wrongly think that it does not affect them.
I think there's an interesting point in there, though, that 12% of them don't know anything about it at all. And it's many years since PSD2 came in, and it is a very complicated bit of legislation that I think all of us are slightly confused about, because often we deal with it because of the exemptions to PSD2, which allows carrier billing, but actually PSD2 sort of it's relevant to all electronic payments. So.
Which brings me on very neatly onto a point that I think is worth raising, that if you are interested in PSD2, and I think there's only the undisputed experts would be AIM, that's the Association for Interactive Media and Micropayments. You can go find them at aimm.co. And I would talk to Joanna Cox or any one of her fantastic team, because they've been all over this particular topic for many a year. So if you are unsure, you want to know anything about how PSD2 affects you, go talk to those guys. They're great. Now, unusually, talking about PSD2, I know generally a bit of a yawn scenario, but in fact, we're going to bring some news that we actually came across our desks this very afternoon. And it comes from our great friends, Dimoko, continually pushing the payments envelope. This time they've hooked up with Sign-D, and they've launched a unique instant banking-based payment method for online shops. Now, bearing in mind this press release literally arrived about 2 hours ago, and Paul's been hosting a webinar most of the afternoon. Going to be fascinating to see just how much he's picked up about this particular story.
Yes, yes, it's there, and I can't say I know it in detail. However, it does appear to be an interesting move. I don't know whether it's Sign-D or signed. I think it's probably Sign-D, isn't it? But yes, they've joined forces with Dimoko to create a sort of a joint payments initiation service provider as a sort of organization. No, it's about taking payments sort of directly from sort of bank accounts. So it's sort of it's always been much more popular on the continent than it has in the UK, where sort of they don't sort of go in for using cards quite so much, but it sort of more formalizes and secures that. But it does sort of offer a really slick, fast way of paying. It's like seamless. You just give it permission and it takes the money. Which years ago, well, not years ago, but a good few years ago, I was always sort of banging on about Uber, because I always thought Uber had done something brilliant with payments, because you didn't ever actually pay. It was just sort of a given that once you arrived at your destination, you got out of your Uber, the money went out of off your card that you'd registered with the app. And you think removing the actual act of payment is the ultimate in making things seamless. And I think this sort of moves towards that kind of thing. Obviously, I think the idea of like paying without knowing it does raise some concerns, and is a bit difficult to sort of get your head around. But I think, this doesn't quite do that, but it makes it for a really fast, easy way to pay. You think this has got to have some massive impact on Telemedia and how things are billed for, because the easier you can make it, for people to part with their hard-earned, the better. So this is an interesting one. And I think sort of, it's an announcement really of a partnership to do this. I think what will be interesting is to see how this develops over the coming sort of weeks and months.
The long and short of it is, as Paul was summarizing, payment services provider Dimoko, that's a PSP, has signed with Sign-D. today to announce an unparalleled payment solution as a joint payments initiation service provider. You heard it here first. That's a PISP or PISP. And it's enabling online merchants to execute payment transactions with a fully customizable white label solution. Initiates and executes an instant payment transaction on behalf of an online merchant. So as we understand it, the phone is initiating a bank transfer. So like Paul was saying, the bank, I think, and the bank details are linked to the telephone, the mobile phone, in probably similar ways to, you were saying where you're embedding a credit card solution into the phone as well. It offers unparalleled convenience and safety for both online retail and consumer, which is obviously fantastic. It's PSD2 compliant because PSD2, I think, specifically covers PISPs and allows them to process payments through customers' bank accounts. And it enables customers to make instant payments directly through the website they're using. So, potentially very big news from Dimoko. I think sounds as though it's an opportunity to extend mobile payments, mobile payment authentication into a very, very broader range of marketplaces. And given what we were talking about earlier, with more and more consumers wanting to do what they do online, there's no surprises that innovators from the telemedia field are front and center of that change in consumer behavior. So well done to them. I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about how this will apply. Yeah. And thanks for giving us a bit of extra content for this particular week's episode. I'm just going to leave it now, Paul, because my Easter egg is melting. And I think it's time that we just round it off. I want to just point out to everybody that on the week commencing the 12th of April to the 16th, we're going to be having Meet Me at Telemedia 8.1 week, or Meet Me or Find Me at Telemedia 8.1 week, where we're going to be extending all kinds of benefits to our 1,000+ users. We're also going to be encouraging everyone to post a Telemedia 8.1 banner and announce their presence at that particular event, help us spread the news on that. And there'll be lots of other giveaways and lots of other initiatives that we're going to be putting together for that particular week. So do take a look at our upcoming emails, and if you're able to spread the word on our behalf, we're going to give you some banners and all kinds of nice things to put up on LinkedIn, because I know that sometimes it can be quite hard to think of something, and it's important to be out there and be there regularly. So this will perhaps fill the gap. So really, I think it just leaves me to say, as always, Paul, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Always, absolutely.
And have you got anything nice planned for Easter?
Well, I will be celebrating the goddess, obviously, as I do most weekends. No, I'm just going to have a couple of days where I don't have to do anything. I shall just lie prone somewhere.
And on that bombshell, I'm going to go online and start making like a telemedia consumer and buying some more props for telemedia news.
Yes, I think so. We need to switch it up for the summer.
I've definitely all I've got is gin miniatures. Cheerio, everyone.
Never as much fun as my helmet.